This is Living Life with Brendan podcast, inspiring people to choose to focus on the positives and live a life with purpose. Hello, this is Brendan Loney. Some of you may know me, some of you probably don't, but just wanted to introduce myself. I am 34 years old. I was injured in a diving accident about 14 years ago that left me as a quadriplegic, and really excited. This is my first episode of Living Life with Brendan podcast, and basically just kind of going through my navigation through life, up to my injury to where I am now. I think throughout the time and what I've gained over the 14 years has a very unique perspective on life with what I have and what I've learned and what I want to share. So 14 years ago, just going back to that incident, I was up at a friend's cabin and having a great time with a lot of my friends during the summer, just like any other night. And late at night, I got warm, decided I wanted to go swimming in the lake, and ended up jumping off of a dock, dove into shallow water, blacked out for a little bit, couldn't remember, just for a couple seconds, woke up, inhaling water, face down. Thankfully, my friend was down there and was able to pull me out of the water, got me onto the dock. I knew something was wrong. Next thing you know, couldn't feel anything, was getting airlifted to North Memorial Hospital where my dad was waiting for me. Again, no idea what was going on, just a lot of emotions at the time. I knew something was really bad because I couldn't move anything, and immediately went into surgery that night, where the next day they found and told me that I was going to be paralyzed from the neck down for the rest of my life, unable to move anything, and most likely living off of a ventilator. Obviously tough news to take in at the time, but through the years and progression, I've gone through a lot of ups and downs, a lot of challenges throughout this time, learning how to speak again, learning how to use my voice, being able to get off that ventilator, and just again, being able to have some arm function, navigating through life kind of by trial and error. And the one thing that's pretty unique throughout the 14 years is I never really wanted to utilize my injury as a crutch to get me anywhere. And so kind of a funny story is I got back into college right after I was injured, was able to graduate with the help of a great staff at Gustavus. And they just kind of made it easy for me to get back, take classes. And as I progressed through there, ended up graduating about a year and a half after I was supposed to with my injury. And, then wanted to get in the real world, jumped into the corporate world about 2 months after I graduated, and kind of started the grind and the rat race out there, and have been extremely successful with everything that I've done, let alone with my injury being paralyzed from the neck down. And, after all this time, I just feel like it's a really good time to share everything that I've learned from my mindset of positivity, kind of choosing to look at the positives rather than the negatives, because I know that we're all battling certain things, whether it's large, small. We can take a stance, take a look at how to approach those. And it's something that I've done over the 14 years. And I think it's really helped me out, kind of focus on my life and what I do towards anybody that's having struggles or going through something tough. And so this podcast is hopefully going to be able to kind of tell some stories that I have with my friends and people that have helped me along the way, and people that I look up to that inspire me, and really want to be able to share that with you and see if it reflects or maybe can help you along the way as well. Growing up, I was always into sports. Like I said, I was injured when I was 20, but before then, as a kid, I tried to play every sport possible. I was always outside running around. The ones that stuck to me were hockey, primarily. Played baseball for a while, ended up playing hockey and golf for high school. And then I went off to play hockey at Gustavus as well. And so I've always been drawn to athletics and sports, and just being active at all times. So you can always catch me at sporting events or playing sports. And so just certain things that I loved. Been really big into music my entire life. And I think that's been good therapy for me as well, even after the injury. Just the way that music can take over your mood, kind of really enhance the way that you're feeling or change your feelings as well. And some of the other things, I'm a big family person. I've got a great support system with my family as well. Again, I think that's kind of helped shape the person that I am, is the surrounding that I grew up with and the support that I have currently. I've got a sister and brother-in-law that don't live too far away, with three nephews that I'm constantly hanging out with even today. And it's interesting because my oldest nephew doesn't remember, but when I was pre-injury, he was about one. So I got a chance to experience what it was like to have a nephew before my injury, being able to hold him and do the normal things, with little kids. And it was exciting, to go through those times and kind of show pictures to him of life before my injury, because that's all that they know currently. But other things, I've always been big into shoes, fashion. And so that's something that continues even with my injury. Trying to look as good as I can to my own knowledge. A lot of people would disagree, but it's just something that I enjoy and kind of has stuck with me. But, rounding out the person that I was hasn't changed a whole lot with the injury, even though a lot of things have changed physically. I'm still the person that I was before, just with a stronger mindset and a lot of difference in views and being able to understand things. I'd say one of the biggest things that I've learned is patience along the way. I was a very impatient person before my injury, and I'd say just needing someone for basically everything that I do in life now has definitely taught me the art of patience as much as possible. And so, there are things that I've learned in a weird way, just basically throughout the injury that I've had to be thrown into, that I can definitely share, because some things are extremely tough to learn and adapt to that are worth it, and some, go very smoothly. And I can talk about my trials and tribulations that I've gone through and what's worked for me. And again, hopefully some of this would resonate with a lot of the viewers out there. So I again, going back to my family, I've got a great support system. I was always what you call maybe very bubbly personality. I love relationships. I love being able to introduce myself, talk to new people, gain an understanding. That hasn't changed a whole lot from the injury. I've had a great support system prior to my injury, and I think that's carried over really well with the injury itself. I know some of my extremely close friends had a really hard time when I was first injured and were constantly in the waiting room. I had mentioned this before, but one of the toughest things for me when I was first injured is I was unable to speak because I had a ventilator in my mouth, but I was seeing these guests and I had lines of people coming in to see me. And, they were telling me, "Oh, you look so great. Things are going to be great. You're going to be fine." And I was sitting there just bawling my eyes out and tears running, and to a point where I didn't want to see friends that were coming, taking time out of their day to come see me and then get a chance to say, "Thank you. Things are looking great. We're so happy you're here." I actually closed off a lot of that because I couldn't communicate with them. And just seeing the look on their face when they walked in, it was heartbreaking for me to see the shock and awe without them actually saying words, knowing how bad it was. And so that's one of the tough things that I've had to deal with was, shutting out some of the friends that I have, people that wanted to see me when I was first injured, because I was just at a point where I was so broken that I couldn't talk back to them. I couldn't converse. I just had to sit there and listen and blink my eyes and have tears roll. So it was really tough in the beginning. And, this is kind of that point that I made, is if I ever can get my voice back, I'm definitely going to not take that for granted anymore and continue to be a social butterfly person and bubbly person. And with the injury, I've gained a lot of great friendships. I know some of the friends that I had prior to my injury have fizzled away just with how to handle it. And I can't imagine what that's like from the other side, having someone that you're close with or friends with that goes through this, and how to approach it after so much time has gone past through. And so there's things that grow, just like with everything. You're constantly going to grow. New relationships will form. Some of them will fizzle out, but it's been a unique ride. And I've grown some fantastic relationships. Some of my best friends now didn't know me prior to my injury. and it's really fun to connect them with friends that I had before that can kind of connect the dots and let them know that I'm not just lying about some of the stories that I have and some of the situations that I have. And so, being able to have that friendships before and also the ones that I've gained after kind of still with me today has been that support system that I continue to rely on and really appreciate. Definitely for people that are going through some sort of injury or setback, biggest thing for me is gaining an understanding of what's going on, being truthful to yourself about your situation, and understanding what the next steps are. It's very difficult to do to accept what has happened. I think I was able to do that pretty early in my situation, and that's helped me recover and move forward. There are definitely going to be days that are tougher than others, and those days don't last. As long as you want to continue to look for the good, continue to look for positivity. You never know what's going to be the outcome. Whereas if you choose to continue to not do anything and lay down, you pretty much know that nothing's going to happen as a future result of that. And so my biggest advice is just continue to try and be better, continue to try and search for goals, positivity, move, get out of the room, get out of the bed, do things that, might scare you a little bit because you never know what that outcome is going to be. Whereas if you're taking time and you're not wanting to do things, that's okay to a point. But if it becomes a pattern and realisticness, you're just never going to get out of that situation. And that's my biggest advice is take it one day at a time, do what you can, but really try and understand what's going on, accepting it, and then moving forward, kind of articulating in your mind what's the next step to be able to be the person that you want to be or the person that you can be. And so that's my advice for people that are in the situation itself. But for those of you that have a friend or family or someone that's going through a certain situation, my biggest thing would be to reach out as much as possible. It's going to be very difficult, but at the same time, don't think that you're overwhelming someone just because you're constantly reaching out. I think that's one thing where leaving, who's got the ball in their court is always a really odd situation. Should I text them? Should I call them? Are they going to call me if they want to hang out or text me? We used to do this. We used to do this. I think just little gestures here and there with a text message, a call, they mean so much. Some of the times in my early days, just getting calls and text messages from friends saying, hey, we're just thinking about you, or hey, we got a chance to, do something, or saw a movie that we saw together, and this is just something that reminded me of you. Man, those were some of the biggest pick-me-ups that I had when I was first injured, just reminiscing about great times and adventures. And the beautiful thing is, just because of an injury like mine and my pretty severe situation that I went through, as you'll see with the podcast and the guests that I've had on, I'm doing crazy things. I've been to London. I've been to Vegas. I go on trips, concerts, athletic games. The other thing I'd mention is just because you can't do something the same way that you once were able to, there are certain ways around it. And that's the thing that you can work on. And some of them may be better than it was before. I do get that blue card, that handicap card, so I get great parking, and it helps me out with concerts to potentially be able to nudge myself into great seating. There's just certain situations where, just because it's not the same that it was before, there's definitely workarounds, trying to figure out, may take a few extra steps, but again, it'll mean so much more in the future as well. So I definitely want to talk about the mindset that I've gathered over these years. The 14 years being injured, because I've definitely had some lows in my life with the injury itself. Just highlighting a few. When I was first injured, like I said, I was on a ventilator, breathing tubes. I was unable to communicate, couldn't move anything. I actually had to blink my eyes on a board with letters to tell my parents what I needed, whether it was scratching my head or my face, if I had an itch, or if I needed them to help wipe my mouth or something that was in there. And so it got extremely frustrating not being able to communicate, to having a second surgery. They actually found after the first surgery that my head was shrinking into my spine. And I ended up having to get a halo put on and, go through an entire second surgery, which was extremely painful. That was about 2 months after the first one that I had, all the way through to, all the little things that go through with everyday use. Even just looking at last year, ended up having a pressure sore on my bottom where I had to get a surgery and I had to spend 8 days in the hospital, 8 weeks on bed rest without being elevated over 30 degrees in bed, to having a portion of my foot had a bone infection on the outside. So they had to shave some of the bone off my foot. We're looking at every year, it seems like there are complications and things that trying to avoid. And, like we go through the mindset and being able to overcome these obstacles. In my situation, I just have a lot more obstacles to overcome. But like I've mentioned before, everybody's going through things. And some people may go through things without a lot of adversity in life and have a really strong mindset. And that's fantastic. Absolutely love that and continue. I would love for people to not have to go through a lot of adversity. But in the same sense, my mind throughout this whole thing has been, I've dealt with some really big blows early and how to overcome those, and really trying to get an understanding of this is what's happening, this is why it's happening, this is the betterment of what's going on, and how do we move forward onto the next thing to get healthy. And really prioritizing and stacking those has helped me along the way. And so really just going through from multiple surgeries, having the halo put on, to, navigating through getting UTIs through a catheter that I have, constantly monitoring just day to day, getting dressed. It's just, going through some of the tough battles had made some of these easier ones cake for me. And I say cake very lightly with the severity of what I have, but I think just sharpening that and being able to start overcoming these in the ways that you choose to and how you tackle them really kind of sets up for that next battle that you have, to have a mindset that's able to overcome it, because you're slowly starting to overcome these other ones. And, it almost is like riding a bike. I know it's a terrible cliche, but if you have that strong mindset, it almost feels like whatever obstacle is thrown at you, you know that you're going to overcome it before it even comes your way, because you have that strong mentality. And that's another reason why I really wanted to start this podcast. Being able to have a strong mindset. I know my situation, but I'm just the host of it, and I can talk about relativity to what I go through, to what my guests are going through. But life is short, and I want to be able to kind of share how to focus on the positives with my guests, but also learning about and having guests on that are able to move through life, and they're able to kind of flow through adversity and look through the positives and really try and find enjoyment out of it. I mean, you look at people that are able-bodied that are miserable all the time, and they're looking at certain situations and trying to see the negatives in them all the time. And so what I'm really excited to do is talk about how I'm able to get through in my situation and be happy and positive, along with guests with me telling their stories. And the beautiful thing is we can collab as well with my guests, because a lot of them have had a huge impact on my life itself, or people that I admire with their mentality and how they're navigating too. And maybe it'll relate. And that's the whole point, is being able to share my story, other stories along the way, how it's impacted me, how it's helped me, how it's helped them. And, just sharing is the best mentality, is my philosophy on this one. So there was a time where I was extremely sick, and it wasn't contagious sick. It had something to do with my indwelling catheter that I have. And it was just, I was on antibiotics and not feeling great. I barely was getting out of bed, and it was actually one of my friend's weddings that night. And I didn't know if I wanted to go. I didn't know if I could muster up the energy. And, relativity to it is, I think I had a pretty high fever at the time, but certain things where I think most people would have just laid back, done nothing, and kind of mustered up, took some, vitamin C, some airborne, and, wanted to be there for my friend, support him on his day. and ended up going to the wedding and had just an absolute blast. Extremely fun times. And again, this is one where I easily could have just tapped out and laid back, stayed back, do nothing, knowing that I wasn't going to aggravate the situation by going out. Definitely still took it easy, but at the same time, I was able to be there for people that have been there for me. Felt great, had an absolute blast of a time as well. So that's one that immediately comes to mind, but I know there are some more if I think about here. This podcast is definitely going to be one of hope and positivity and light. I'm going to be having guests on here where we're talking about stories, whether it's situational. We're going to talk about kind of impact that they've had on my life, or, admiration to just, what we've done, hanging out, certain things, how they're able to get through certain, projects, how they're able to get through certain scenarios. Again, I want this to be a platform of perseverance and positivity. People can come and watch and learn about situations, my life particularly, but also with the guests, having conversations, questions, going through events, trips, navigating through life, just with their own certain situations and mine as well. A lot of them will be together, but as we continue to go on the ride, we're going to learn so much about so many different people and how, everybody's going through something. And if we can just pull on those positivity and really look into the good in certain things, hopefully we can all have a lot of fun on this ride. And the podcast is called Living Life with Brendan, which I definitely know is pretty self-explanatory. But at the same time, I look around and I see not everybody is living up to their life and choosing to continue and pursue. And, what I'm hoping to achieve here is hopefully have people understand and look at me and say, hey, he's doing it. Why can't I? Especially in the certain, situation that I'm in currently. And so that's really the hope and goal of this one. And, I'll give you an example. I was just out at, my sister and brother-in-law just built a cabin, and it's fantastic. And I was able to get out there and just see, and, a lot of it was done in accountability for me in some certain areas, which I'm extremely blessed and thankful that they're thinking about me. And there was a moment where I was out there just sitting in one of the porch areas in the kitchen and overlooking a sunset and thinking, man, this is just precious right now. This is unbelievable. Where I'm at in life, I'm alive. 14 years post-injury, looking back when I was 20, not knowing what was going to happen to me, thinking my life was almost completely over, living on a ventilator, not able to move, not able to communicate, to here I am, successful business, great family, great friends and support. Just honestly watching the sunset, music, family around me, had an absolute blast, and just want to share that and have people also experience these moments of aha and realization in the world that it's such a blessing to be here. So that's what I'm really hoping to achieve and get this across. One big thing that I've learned too is there's a massive disconnect between able-bodied people and people of myself, like quadriplegics, and what it takes on a day-to-day basis just to get up, get dressed, go to bed. The simple things are not simple for me. And I'd love to share that as we continue with podcasts and going through. I mean, even the simple thing of I was injured and paralyzed, so I don't have any feeling from my chest down. It's very, touch and go, pins and needles, but a lot of people don't even understand, or nor would they if they didn't have anybody that was, immediately affected by an injury. But it's just something that, I'm hoping to along the way kind of sprinkle that in there just so that people can understand, not taking certain things for granted, because I definitely did before my injury, but just having a good understanding of what they have currently and what it could be like potentially for those around them, as I'm learning about other people as well, and just trying to keep an open mind as much as I possibly can. Yeah, as I navigated through podcasts, listening to podcasts, watching podcasts, there's not a lot of podcasts with quadriplegics, handful of them out there. And whether that's people are afraid to kind of make that jump, they're uneasy about what they want to do. Again, hoping to be the advocate, letting them know that basically anything's possible. And I know it sounds cheesy, but it is. I'm really excited to be up here doing this and just kind of showing that whether you're disabled or have any sort of injury, to able-bodied people with nothing else, that I'm out here doing it. This is something that I really wanted to do and achieve, and hopefully this will help pave the way for anybody that is, struggling or not, to be able to make that next step and want to pursue something that they enjoy, because I think everybody should at least give it a chance. So every time that I have a guest on my show, I'll end the podcast with the slogan, "How do you live life?" and have them answer in a certain way, however they want to. And so for everyone that's looking at me currently, how I live life is one day by day, positively looking at the good over the bad and just trying to make the best person that I possibly can and just persevere through everything that gets thrown at me day by day. And that's something that I'd like to ask you as a viewer. How do you live life? I know that you're not going to be able to answer me through here, but it's definitely something that you should think about, and I want you to think about as you continue to watch these podcasts and take this journey with me. Thank you all for listening. So excited for you to join this ride with me. Again, this is Living Life with Brendan.